What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with DFS, bringing you a brand new video. And I know if you're new to the channel, this kind of looks different. But basically, I have a spreadsheet set up going over the Thursday night Showdown. So Showdown videos are going to be different than the main slate videos. Main slate, I'm okay with using DraftKings. On Showdown, some people use Fanduel, some people use DraftKings, some people use both. So this kind of sums it up and makes it a little easier when talking about prices and players, in finding out which site you want to use, right? So right off the bat, I mean, if you want to compare prices, you get Lamar is more expensive on DraftKings by 1,000. Mahomes is more expensive on FanDuel than by 500 versus Lamar. Derrick Henry, second most expensive player on FanDuel, or third, sorry. Travis Kelce, third on DraftKings. So you guys can see the difference there. And I have the keys set up down here. So you guys can check that out. If you guys are interested in this before we start and want to get spreadsheets for the main slates and showdowns, and want to join us this season, the link for our Discord is in the description. So if you guys want to see this fully and get access to it whenever you want, that will be in the description. So now going over why you're here, right? So it's a very odd game, like trying to break this down, because these two teams just played Baltimore's last game, Kansas City's second to last game. It was kind of odd, right? We saw someone like Zay Flowers have a good game, Travis Kelce had a good game, Lamar, Mahomes, yeah, defenses, same thing, kickers, kind of odd depending on who you were, and some moving pieces, right? So starting off with the quarterbacks in this matchup, right? It's you just have two top 10 offenses, we'll say. You could consider top 5, but we'll just say top 10, so no arguments are done. Two top 10 offenses. Lamar, if you go back and look at every game he's had against Kansas City, and granted, this has probably been the best variation of Kansas City defense that we've seen last year. L'Jarius Sneed leaves, right? Kind of a hit to their DBs, but other than that, it's pretty much the same unit. Lamar is rushed very good against Kansas City. I think he averages like 71 rushing yards a game against Kansas City. Saw what he did last season in the playoffs against Kansas City. Got that rushing. Obviously, the passing was a different story, but I still think he's good there. Patrick Mahomes has pretty much dominated Baltimore his entire career. And you got to remember, Baltimore's been a pretty good defense. That's what Harbaugh is always trying to do, is have a really good defense, and then have an offense that just doesn't lose games. But fortunately, they've had Lamar, so it changes it. But Mahomes against Baltimore has been very, very solid. His numbers are very impressive. Great primetime quarterback. Last year, we saw a different Mahomes than we have in his career. I'm still going to blame it on Matt Nagy. If you're a Bears fan, you know how painful it is, and you see what Kansas City did last year with Nagy calling plays, and it was a pain to watch. But overall, I still think he's a great quarterback. Good play on the slate. I think this slate is kind of difficult to read, right? You two top 10 offenses, but at the same time, you have two top 10 defenses at that too. So very kind of different scenarios can go on. So it's going to be tricky to kind of guess, right? Essentially guess of who's going to stand out. But Travis Kelce, this one is not really a like or fade for me. He had 30 DraftKings points in that playoff. We finally saw the connection between Mahomes and Kelce. Patrick Queen is gone for Baltimore, right? Him and Roquan were, I think, very solid together. The thing that kind of gets me on Kelce in this and why he's not a like, we've seen some struggles with Mahomes' offense last season with Nagy calling plays. Obviously, you get, we wanted Hollywood Brown in there, but you draft Xavier Worthy, you bring back Juju, you bring back Hardman. You want to get the passing game more efficient than it was last season. Travis Kelce's got a kind of tough matchup against Roquan Smith, I'm assuming. But does he get relied upon again? Do they try to get, Xavier Worthy started off fast. I just don't know on this slate if I want to pay Travis Kelce, because if I'm paying Travis Kelce, there's a good chance I'm paying Patrick Mahomes, right? I don't know if I want to invest that much into those two guys together. That's why he's kind of there. I like Kelce. I think he's playable. It's just really hard on this slate to kind of put Kelce and Mahomes together. Now, Derrick Henry, right on Fanduel, third most. DraftKings fourth. Derrick Henry still, if you go and look at his numbers, still had a good year. That was probably one of the worst variations of the Tennessee Titans offensive line Derrick Henry's had. Obviously, the quarterback play was different. Now he goes to an offensive line that's lost 3 starters, which is kind of worrisome, but you have the threat of Lamar Jackson, right? We have seen Lamar do Lamar things, but I think early in his career, it was a different story, right? The rushing there was just different, and the passing has progressed so much for Lamar. We haven't seen kind of that same Lamar since, Ingram left. I think he was a really good weapon. Now we get Derrick Henry and Lamar, and I think in this matchup, right, Chris Jones is still there, one of the best defensive tackles in the league. That weak spot on Kansas City right now is their defensive line, right? So if they find a way to kind of slow down Chris Jones, I think the rest of the offensive line could do a pretty good job trying to open up holes for Derrick Henry and Lamar. It's kind of why I like Derrick Henry. He has that touchdown upside. He is one of the best red zone backs in the league. So definitely want the touchdown upside there. Isaiah Pacheco is another one. Obviously, the price difference in Pacheco to the other 4 is kind of crazy. On FanDuel, DraftKings, it's not so much, but we're talking about a $2,000 difference there. Clyde Edwards-Helaire hurt. McKinnon gone. They bring in P. Ryan, who just signed, which is, I would say, worrisome for a running back. Maybe, but I'm not bought in on it. Steele is looking like the other running back that they got. I like Steele. He looked good against the Bears. Looked good in the preseason. But I'm expecting Pacheco to get a lot of touches. Baltimore plays good against the run. They've had games where they're worse, but overall pretty good. And had, I think 16 DraftKings points in their playoff game last season. But overall, he's going to get majority of the volume. Obviously, they're not going to give him everything. They're going to try to include Steele, right? Not purposely, but to give Pacheco a break the way he runs the ball. P. Ryan may get in, but I would expect Isaiah Pacheco to get a lot of the volume. Zay Flowers next on the list. You can see where he's at price-wise. And this is where it kind of balances out, right? You get Isaiah Pacheco and Zay Flowers back-to-back on both sides. So there's not an advantage there. Last 5 out of 7 games for Zay Flowers, he got over 20 DraftKings points. Now, the 2 games he didn't get over 20, they were under 10. They were really bad weeks, but one was against Kansas City. They lose L'Jarius Sneed. McDuffie has had some games where he's a lockdown corner, other games where he's kind of shaky. Honestly, unless Bateman really steps up, right, you have Mark Andrews back, which is a good thing for someone like Zay Flowers. But Nelson Aguilar, Devontae Walker, you don't have a lot of guys really to get a lot more targets. So Zay Flowers in this one is a safe play to me. Rashee Rice is going to see Kyle Hamilton a lot. And you look at Rashee Rice's numbers against Hamilton, the receptions were there, but the yards were not. It's really, really hard to kind of get Rashee Rice and Mahomes together, right? It's hard with Kelce, but I'd be more confident with Kelce in his matchup than Rashee Rice, especially in his price range. Obviously, we know Hollywood Brown is out, but Mark Andrews on DraftKings is a value to me. Usually values are like $3K and under, but Mark Andrews at $6,400 is a value on DraftKings. FanDuel, not there yet. And the only reason is we know Mark Andrews, how good he is of a tight end. You look at his history against Kansas City, and it's not good, especially in the playoff coming back from an injury, essentially wasn't 100%. Still a tough tough matchup for Mark Andrews, but his price on DraftKings is just too cheap to not see the value in it. So that's why he's a value on DraftKings. Xavier Worthy, right? I think the big play potential is there. We saw situations with MVS the last couple years of him not being the wide receiver they wanted him to be and what they paid him to be, and they were looking for that deep ball threat. Xavier Worthy could be that guy, right? We could see Xavier Worthy kind of be, get a couple short passes and then maybe get a deep pass, and that's, what he might be to start the season. We don't know, right? We don't know rookies. We saw what Rashee Rice, how he started off with Kansas City. And there was no one. Xavier Worthy now has Rashee Rice in front of him. You have returning vets in Juju and Hardman, who were, Juju just signed as well last week, but he's been in this Kansas City offense. Matt Nagy is still running basically an Andy Reid offense. So, am I worried about the slow start for rookie wide receiver? Maybe, right? If they get that strong connection early, this could ride all season. That's why he's neither a like or fade for me. I think he's kind of in that sweet spot to where if I get him, I get him. If I don't, I don't, right? And then we go next to Rashad Bateman. On DraftKings, I think he's just a little too expensive for me. Just a little bit for what he's done in his career. Obviously, if you're like me, you've been hopeful Bateman has got it together. Unfortunately, with injuries and his play, I think is a safe thing to say. He's not lived up to those expectations. Why DraftKings has him at 5,200 is beyond me. Fanduel has him at 7,500. I think that's a really good price for him there. Obviously, it's still a tough matchup against Kansas City. He's probably the third target on that offense, realistically. But on DraftKings, he's just too expensive for me to go after when you can get both kickers and both defenses for cheaper. Yeah, right? Like on FanDuel, and this is why I do this, is to give this example, because maybe you don't play on FanDuel as often. I don't know, right? But this is just to help you guys out see it differently. But he's cheaper than both the defenses, cheaper than both the kickers. Like, he is pretty cheap when you look at other prices. Like, P. Ryan is $8K. P. Ryan is $8K just coming to Kansas City. Not been in their offense. Just signed a few days ago. And he's $8K. Rashad Bateman's cheaper, right? DraftKings, he's just a little expensive for me on this slate. Obviously, Justin Tucker, Harrison Butker, two of the best kickers in the league. In a matchup like this, right, early on in the season, could see some just mental mistakes, stuff like that, just that connection not being there. Kickers may see a few extra points. I always want to have exposure to kickers in two top 10 offensive games. Justice Hill on FanDuel is where I find the value. DraftKings, I would need him under 4K, probably like a 3,700 range, but on FanDuel, he's 7,500, and I kind of like that price. The thing we're watching is down here. I have him. Rasheen Ali is questionable. Now, even if he plays, that's not the issue, right? It's more of Justice Hill is the RB2 there. Derrick Henry, the explosiveness of Derrick Henry isn't the same. Justice Hill obviously isn't the most explosive back, but I think he brings just a little more speed than Derrick Henry. I think if they're going to pass for running back, it's probably going to be Hill. So that's why I have him on FanDuel at 7,500 as a value piece for me. Right, same price as Rashad Bateman. Cheaper than P. Ryan. Right, he's cheap. That's why I like him. Ravens Chiefs, you go and look at Baltimore's defense in DraftKings points last year. Very good defense, right? Very good defense. Look at what the Chiefs did to Baltimore's offense last year. Paid off as well. So both defenses there. Justin Watson is a value for me on both sides. Usually I go 3K and below, but on this slate, I'm going to throw Justin Watson in. He's listed as a wide receiver 3 currently for Kansas City. That's why we have him in. Mecole Hardman and Juju, like I mentioned, are back. So I imagine Justin Watson's not going to get, 65% or more of the snaps. We could see Hardman and Juju get involved in there as well, right? So I'm putting him there because we know he's going to be on the field I would say more than Hardman and Juju, unless he does stuff like Kadarius Toney did last season for Kansas City. He's going to be on the field, so that's why he's a value for me. We already know Clyde Edwards-Helaire is out. That's why P. Ryan's there. B. Ryan's a fade. Isaiah Likely is a value on DraftKings to me. On FanDuel, I think he's like this is where pricing comes. If you like Isaiah Likely, you're gonna want to play DraftKings. If you like Rashad Bateman, you're gonna play FanDuel. Isaiah Likely is 500 more than Bateman on FanDuel. Isaiah Likely is good for when he gets snaps, but you have to remember Baltimore runs a lot of plays with a fullback and a true fullback, and having Mark Andrews already out there is too. So you're talking 2 wide receiver sets. So obviously they're going to get him on the field. Sometimes you're going to see 2 tight end sets. He may see a few targets, but there's always that touchdown upside with someone like Isaiah Likely as well. Lamar likes to target his tight ends in the red zone, so still is a tough matchup overall for Baltimore pass catchers, but on this slate, I think he's a value. Keaton Mitchell, out, unfortunately, still. He's someone I'm looking forward to towards the end of the season. But we get down to these 2 guys that are the min on both sides. That's Carson Steele, 200 on DraftKings, 5,000 on FanDuel, being the RB3, and I honestly could see him being the RB2 with P. Ryan just getting there. And we saw how Carson Steele ran in preseason. He looked really, really good. That's why they brought him on. They have him listed as a fullback, I think, still. But he's going to get some type of snaps, some type of carries in this game. And at the bare min, right, that touchdown upside at 5,000 or 200 on both sides could be a game changer. Rasheen Ali, right, we're watching the injury news. If he gets in, we could see him be used, right? Baltimore's been looking for an explosive running back to go with their powerhouse running back. I think that formula's kind of been off lately. Someone like Keaton Mitchell last season, when he got in, looked really good and looked like him and Gus Edwards were going to be a nice 1-2 punch for Baltimore. Justice Hill still did his thing, but maybe we see that with Rasheen Ali. I would just watch the injury news. So, yeah, all this means, guys, is in the keys is likes means if I'm doing 150s, I'm going to be higher on these guys. Fades means I'm going to be lower on these guys. And then value means, hey, take a look at these guys for their prices. If you need someone, in this range to pay down to, or find someone with some upside, that's who you're kind of looking at. So for all the new subscribers and new people to the channel, I hope the spreadsheet makes sense for 1 and helps for 2. If you guys don't want me to do this anymore and want me to just stay on DraftKings and FanDuel and go on the sites, I could do that. I thought it'd just be easier last season is when I started it. Just make it easier on you guys. And then, like I said, if you guys are interested in getting the spreadsheets at all times, right? Any questions and stuff like that, fantasy bets, all that stuff, click the link for our Discord. We have a very cheap subscription package with basically anything you could want from us. So hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you in the next one.